Hello, hello, this is Fear Dragon coming at you with another StarCraft 2 netcast. If you have not seen the first game from the finals of the EU ZOTAC Cup number 159, please go ahead and check that out before you watch this game. It was a really awesome ZVZ going on, but if you have already seen it, we're going to go ahead and jump in and introduce the players. Spawning up here in the top right-hand corner of Neoplanet S is going to be representing Team Navi. It is going to be NaviMinato. And he is facing off against his opponent spawned down here in the bottom left-hand corner as the red Zerg player, currently up 1-0 in the best-of-5 series of the finals, looking to take the entire tournament. It is going to be representing Team Acer, AcerNerchio. And Nerchio talking a little bit about that last game, that game number 1, where in that ZVZ, Minato went for a very, very heavy, big speedling aggression play. I'm not sure if I would consider it an all-in because he was actually trying to grab a third expansion behind it. And of course, that third expansion also allowed him to get up enough larva to try and just really put on the hurt. But Nerchio really just did a great job in getting the big hold off. And actually, you know, even though he didn't actually get the best bailing hits off on his opponent, he still managed to just barely hold on those two bases, and with that, he was able to do that big counter swing aggression and was able to take the game against his opponent, who had taken a much earlier third, but really wasn't able to capitalize on the mining from it. So in this game, we'll have to see how these players open up, if in fact Minato will go for a similar kind of big speedling 1-1 pressure timing, or if he'll just go and play a little bit more standard. In the meanwhile, looks like both these players just throwing down their spawning pool first. They know that this is a fairly actually small two-player map. It's actually not too difficult for a Zerg player to actually move down along either of these flanks to try and make it to their opponent's base and put on some of that aggression. So, of course, going for a little bit of spawning pool first action, not going to be the most surprising thing in the world. And, of course, both of them also going for a fairly early Gas Geyser, following it up with their expansion. I've almost never ever see a Zerg versus Zerg these days where players don't go for that expansion now before even scouting out their opponent, just because even when you're trying to deal with some kind of big 6 pool aggression or anything of the sort, you can actually utilize these little mineral patches like this one over here that you can see is kind of tucked in away between the other two mineral patches, so you can actually box all of your drones and just right click this mineral patch. They'll all stack up in that little area, and really only 1 or 2 Zergans can actually attack one of your 2 of your drones at a time, so it really does end up working out in your favor. Looks like just barely Minato getting the slight advantage in that little Zergling on Zergling action engagement, and both of them going to be chasing down their opponent's Zerglings, but it looks like actually, ooh, this is looking close. Nerchio might actually be able to get that Zergling, but no, it does heal up back into the orange, and of course that Queen is going to chase away that Zergling. But in the meanwhile, the Queen for Nerchio does make its way down to the ramp to try and do that next little larva inject where it can spew all of its good old larva onto the hatchery. Come on, Queen. Spew your larva. Spew your larva. Do it for everyone. Everybody is watching. Looks like Nerchio doesn't want to do a larva inject right now for whatever reason, but with that being said, of course, both these players are going to be going for that Zergling speed, and it looks like also both of them getting a relatively similarly timed Baneling nest. So, curious whether or not these are going to be defensive Banelings or what. For the most part, I don't see anything that's going to indicate that either of them wants to be absurdly aggressive or anything. I mean, we do see that Minato is trying to remake 2 of those Zerglings just because I think he did end up losing some of his Zerglings. He probably just wants a little bit more of that map scouting as well as that control across the map. Just being prepared maybe for when his Baneling nest also finishes up so he can morph in a couple of defensive Banelings. But beyond that, both these players playing fairly defensively, and actually surprisingly Minato does have a slight unit lead, and that actually does come down to, looks like just a slight drone lead, but of course Nerchio pumping a ton of drones, so he's going to have a big round of drones coming in, and is actually grabbing his 2nd and 3rd and 4th gas guys. Oh my god, and throwing down his spawning pool. It looks like Nerchio really wants to go for a very fast Mutals play. We'll have to see if this ends up working out. I've seen him go for this actually before, and it's in the past worked out quite well for him. I mean, he's generally not actually been too scared. I believe in the quarterfinals he did this, and was definitely not afraid to show this to his opponent, but at the same time, Minato doing a very similar style where he goes for all 4 of those very early gas geysers. It looks like Minato just slightly delayed in terms of layer attack to his opponent as well as those gas geysers. So, I mean, I'm not sure if it's going to play the biggest deal, but of course you do have to keep in mind that Minato is going to be about 15 or so seconds delayed to his opponent, and that actually just might be enough time for some Noodles to move across the map. That might take a little bit away from Minato's defender's advantage. Now, we do end up seeing 2 Zergans trying to come in from Nerchio. Not going to get a big scat off, but of course, that does mean that Minato had to waste one of those Banelings, and in comparison, I mean, we can see that Nerchio has actually not had to morph in any Banelings whatsoever. He's just been able to save up that gas purely for that Spire tech. So I have to say right now, I'm kind of giving this game a slight edge over to AcerNerchio, despite being a couple of drones behind, it looks like. Actually, no, a couple of drones ahead, but it looks like that supply lead for Minato does exist in those extra Zerglings. So those extra Zerglings do make a difference. You do want to have some ground forces just because they can do things like Zergling run-bys, as well as actually be able to do a bit of other damage. But oh my god, what is this? It looks like Minato just wants to go for a ton of early aggression right now. He is actually sending a ton of these Zerglings over here to try and deny that 3rd expansion while he goes ahead and takes his own. In the meanwhile, you have to remember that Nerchio did not really morph in a ton of Banelings early on. He is only just now morphed in a handful of them. It looks like some Banelings of Minato going off on some of the Banelings of Nerchio. Not exactly the best situation for Minato, and it looks like all the Banelings of Minato are going to get taken out. A couple of Banelings for Nerchio still left over. They are actually going to be miscontrolled a little bit and do explode on 2 Banelings. Very well done by Minato, being able to waste those Banelings of Nerchio, but Nerchio has 2 Banelings left over. Let's see if he can actually secure this 3rd expansion and deal with all these Zerglings over here. It looks like Nerchio moving in with the Banelings, trying to come in from a side position so he can just do a little bit extra damage. He has to be a little bit careful though, because a handful of these Zerglings can actually take out these Banelings without too much of a trouble, and it looks like some of the Mules are out for Nerchio at this point, and it looks like Nerchio also trying to deny that 3rd expansion of Minato. Just target firing down, will be able to get it. It looks like the Mules are going to be able to come in, and he is going to be able to clean up all those Zerglings of Nerchio, and Nerchio going to be sitting in a bit of an uncomfortable position just because his opponent is going to have a good time trying to secure up that 3rd expansion. But in the meanwhile, the Mules count looking a little bit even, but now with this 1 reinforcing Mules, it looks like Minato going to be falling a little bit behind in that Mules versus Mules count. You have to remember, Mules versus Mules battles, having 1 or 2 Mules will actually make a huge difference in how many Mules you'll have at the end of the battle. And actually, Nerchio doing a great job just moving around the map, has actually been able to supply block his opponent a couple of times, and now we do end up seeing the Mules engaging the opponent's Mules. And I do believe that, yeah, Nerchio does have a nice little Mules lead, now actually up 2 Mules, I think, 1 or 2 Mules. And that's going to just escalate gradually as these players start to engage more and more, as long as they're engaging in numbers where Nerchio has that advantage. Nerchio actually getting yet another Mules, and that Glaive Worm damage is going to spread. You can see how effective just having 1 or 2 extra Mules can be, as now you can see Nerchio really taking a severe advantage in the Mules count, being able to take out some of the reinforcing Mules of Nerchio, but now with some additional ones popping out for Minato. I mean, you do have to remember he has that defender's advantage, all of his reinforcing Mules there immediately, and it looks like actually, oh my god, Minato going to be able to turn the tide, pushing Nerchio back once again. Even with those speed Zerglings underneath that, they can actually soak up some of that damage. And in the meanwhile, Minato even has a handful of spare Zerglings to go ahead and go for that counterattack over on Nerchio's natural expansion, be able to take out a ton of these drones. This is actually being super effective. Now we can see Nerchio forced to retreat with all of his Mules to try and take out some of those Zerglings, but the damage has been done. 37 drones for Nerchio in comparison to the 43 drones of Minato. And of course, you have to remember that once Nerchio does end up getting up this 3rd expansion, yeah, he'll be able to drone up a little bit more, but Minato has been able to secure that 3rd expansion this entire time, so having a bit of an army advantage as well as actually having a bit of an economy advantage, he's going to be in a good position. But he did end up losing a handful of those Mules in that engagement. He has to be once again a little bit careful over here, but this time Nerchio not going to get caught off guard by that Zergling run by, going to have some Zerglings in position to actually deal with those. And it looks like Nerchio going to be on the aggression once again, knowing that he's taken a slight advantage in terms of that Mules count. Now, being able to pick off a couple of those Overlords is going to be nice. And oh my god, it looks like Nerchio target firing down that 3rd expansion, going to be able to take it out. And that does mean that no 5th and 6th gas geysers for Minato, but at the same time, Minato doing a huge run by over at the natural expansion of NaviMinato once again. So even though NaviMinato has managed to reestablish that third expansion, he ends up losing all of his drones over the natural expansion. Might end up losing a ton of them, as well as his queen over in the main base, but that queen getting some nice transfuses still ends up, wow, just barely surviving. So really well done by NaviMinato in terms of defense, but I mean, he is down 10 drones to his opponent, has also lost basically all of the drones mining over his natural expansion. It's not even gotten up those 5th and 6th gas headers over his third base, but at the same time, he did manage to take out his opponent's third base. So that is the one nice little advantage that he can have if this game goes into a longer situation. It looks like in the mutals count, we do have 17 for NaviMinato and 16 just now popped out for Minato. So still a little bit in favor of NaviMinato, but again, Minato does have that reinforcement defender's advantage coming out in favor of him. And of course, he does have a handful more, few Zerglings that are going to be able to soak up some of those Glaive Worm bounces. And you do want those Zerglings underneath your opponent's Mutalisk or even your Mutalisk when they're actually engaging against your opponent, just because, again, soaking up those Glaive Worm bounces can really turn the tide of a battle. Now, in the meanwhile, it looks like finally some upgrades are going to be started, as we do have +1 Carapace upgrade going down for Minato. Now, remember, Minato is slightly behind in that Mutalisk count. We can see 21 for NaviMinato and 17 for Minato, but again, having Carapace upgrades so vital, because it also helps against those Glaive Worm bounces, and being able to have those Carapace upgrades can really mean that even though you have slightly fewer Mutals than your opponent, your Mutals are just that much more effective, and that means that you can actually take the engagement against your opponent with those fewer Mutals. So that looks like that's the way that Minato wants to catch up in this game. It looks like the upgrade is about halfway finished. After that does finish up, he's going to have a actual distinct advantage against NaviMinato. So we'll have to wait and see, when does NaviMinato decide to go for that, you know, that big research. As you have to remember, NaviMinato was behind in the drone count. He's actually caught up quite a bit, actually now 3 drones ahead of his opponent. But still, he has to be a little bit careful, just because that has actually given Minato that opportunity to go for that Carapace upgrade. Now it looks like the big engagement is going to happen. Speedlings engaging the Speedlings. Whoever wins the Speedling battle will be able to have the Zerglings underneath the army to soak up some of those additional Glaive Worm bounces. Looks like the ground army is going to go to Minato, but at the same time, during that entire engagement, the Mutalisk of NaviMinato managed to take that engagement handily, with a lot more Mutals in favor of NaviMinato, and now we can end up seeing Minato going to be forced back quite a bit. Smiley faces being tossed out by both these players, knowing that the situation of this game has been heavily favoring NaviMinato at this point, as Minato is on the back foot. Some nice transfuses going down, but is it going to be enough? I am just not sure. There's just too few Mutals left, and there are only 2 remaining, going down to 1. GG gets called. Well played from Minato, and NaviMinato takes game number 2 in a best-of-5 series of the finals for the EU ZOTAC Cup number 159. So very well played from both these players, but NaviMinato taking 2 games in a row, despite actually taking quite a bit of damage from these Zerglings of Minato. NaviMinato realizing that he has the Mutals count to just press the advantage against his opponent and take the game. So he's going to be 1 win away from taking the entire series against his opponent. Will he be able to do it, or will Minato be able to make some sort of miraculous 3-0 comeback? There's only one way to find out. I will see you guys in game number 3.